Imagine a summer where the sun disappears, a year where snow falls in June, where frost kills crops in July, and the sky is perpetually cloaked in a dim, airy. This isn't the plot of a science fiction movie. It was the chilling reality for people around the world in 1816. A period that would later be known as the year without a summer. It was a time of darkness, famine, and fear. A global catastrophe triggered by an event halfway across the planet that nobody in Europe or America even knew had happened. The world was plunged into a mysterious, seemingly endless winter. And the story of how it happened, and how humanity survived, is a stark reminder of our planet's power and our own vulnerability. To understand the darkness of 1860, we have to travel back 1 year earlier and thousands of miles away to April 1815 on the island of Sumbawa in what is now Indonesia. Here stood a colossal volcano, Mount Tambora. For centuries, it had slumbered, but now it was about to unleash a fury that would reshape history. The eruption of Mount Tambora was not just an eruption. It was the most powerful volcanic event in recorded human history, 100 times more powerful than the eruption of Vesuvius that buried Pompeii. The explosion was so titanic that it was heard over 1,000 miles away. It blasted an estimated 36 cubic miles of rock, ash, and gas into the atmosphere. The immediate aftermath was apocalyptic for the local population. Entire villages were incinerated by pyroclastic flows, and tsunamis ravaged nearby coastlines. The island of Sumbawa was plunged into total darkness for days, but the true global impact was just beginning. The sheer force of the Tambora eruption injected an immense amount of sulfur dioxide and fine ash into the stratosphere, far above the weather systems. There, these particles circled the globe, forming a translucent veil, a gigantic aerosol cloud that reflected sunlight back into space. The effect was like drawing a shade over the entire planet. As this stratospheric haze spread, it began to drastically cool the Earth's surface. Wheat in months, the global climate system was sent into a tailspin. No one in Europe or North America connected the strange weather with a distant volcano. All they knew was that something was terribly wrong. Spring of 1816 arrived late, or not at all. Summer never came. The year 1816 became infamous for its bizarre and destructive weather. In New England, what should have been warm summer months were instead marked by a brutal, persistent cold. A heavy snowstorm blanketed the region in early June, burying freshly planted crops and killing newborn livestock. The ground froze solid. One Vermont farmer wrote in his diary, "Severe frost. Always froze." Ice was reported on lakes and rivers in Pennsylvania in July and August. People wore overcoats and huddled around fires in what should have been the peak of summer. Across the Atlantic, the situation was just as dire. Europe was drenched by incessant, chilling rains. Rivers, like the Rhine, flooded catastrophically. The sky was a constant, gloomy, gray, and the sun, when visible, was a pale, dim disk in the sky, often with a strange reddish hue. Sunspots were visible to the naked eye, a phenomenon that unnerved observers and fueled apocalyptic fears. It was a year of perpetual twilight, a summer stolen by an invisible, global winter. This wasn't just strange weather. It was a full-blown climate collapse. The consequences of this global deep freeze were swift and devastating. With crops failing from the frost in America and rotting from the endless rain in Europe, food supplies dwindled and prices skyrocketed. The harvest of 1816 was the worst of the 19th century. Grain prices in some parts of Europe increased tenfold. This led to widespread, desperate famine. People were forced to eat whatever they could find: cats, rats, and boiled weeds. The crisis wasn't just about hunger. It was a complete societal breakdown. The economic depression that followed was severe. Without crops to sell, farmers were ruined. Without raw materials, industries faltered. Unemployment soared. This combination of starvation and economic despair was a powder keg. Bread riots erupted across Britain, France, and Switzerland. Grain warehouses were looted. Desperate mobs marched through cities, demanding food. Governments, already strained by the recent Napoleonic Wars, were overwhelmed. It became known as the Poverty Year. The social fabric of society was tearing apart under the strain of a disaster whose cause was still a complete mystery to the people suffering through it. Faced with starvation and ruin, people did what they always do when faced with catastrophe. They tried to survive. The year without a summer triggered one of the great migrations of the 19th century. For thousands of farming families in New England, the failed harvests of 1816 were the final straw. Convinced the soil was exhausted or the climate permanently broken, they packed their belongings and headed west, seeking a new life in the Ohio Valley and beyond. This westward expansion, known as the Ohio Fever, dramatically accelerated the settlement of the American Midwest. In Europe, families abandoned their villages in search of food and work. Becoming vagrants on the roads, communities had to adapt in radical ways. Those who could afford it hoarded food. Others relied on charity, which was quickly overwhelmed. This period tested the limits of human resilience, forcing ordinary people to make extraordinary choices just to see the next sunrise. It was a raw, primal struggle for survival, played out on a global scale. Yet, even in the midst of this darkness and despair, the year without a summer sparked incredible bursts of creativity and scientific inquiry. Perhaps the most famous cultural legacy was born on the shores of Lake Geneva in Switzerland. The weather was so cold and rainy that a group of young English writers, confined indoors, decided to pass the time by writing ghost stories. In that group was 18-year-old Mary Shelley. Inspired by the gloomy atmosphere, the dramatic electrical storms, and conversations about the nature of life, she began to write a story that would become a masterpiece of Gothic literature. Frankenstein. The bleak, unnatural world outside her window infused her novel with its sense of monstrous creation and cosmic dread. At the same time, the strange, blood-red sunsets and dim skies inspired artists like J.M.W. Turner, whose dramatic and colorful landscapes captured the atmospheric effects of the volcanic haze. Scientists, meanwhile, began to more seriously study weather patterns and solar phenomena, laying the groundwork for the modern science of climatology. The darkness had, in its own strange way, illuminated new paths for art and science. Looking back at 1816 from our modern perspective, the story of the year without a summer is more than just a historical curiosity. It's a profound lesson. It reveals how interconnected our world is, how a single event on one side of the planet can have catastrophic consequences for the other. It demonstrates the terrifying power of climate change, not as a slow, gradual process, but as a rapid, system-shattering collapse. But it is also a story of recovery. The volcanic aerosol cloud eventually dissipated. The sun returned. The climate, though altered for several years, slowly stabilized. Humanity, though scarred, endured and rebuilt. The frozen past of 1816 serves as a stark warning about our own climate vulnerability today, but it also offers a glimmer of hope. It reminds us that even after the darkest years, summers can, and do, return. Thank you so much for watching. If you found this journey into the past fascinating, please hit that like button and subscribe for more stories from history. We'll see you in the next one.